We were told that what the UFC would like is for Conor to fight Poirier and Khabib to fight Ferguson next. Almost like a semifinal, 4-man tournament, if you will. Winners advance and fight each other. I like that. Makes sense. I'm on board. Sounds pretty cool. Ali, Khabib's manager, came out and said there is 100% zero chance that Khabib will be fighting Tony Ferguson next. Now, before you get all worked up, who knows? You know, one of the important ingredients in building a big fight is making the fans beg for it. I don't like that, but I can't deny or ignore that has been a historical important ingredient. So the very first thing to do to make somebody want to see something or have something is tell them they can't have it and they can't see it. So I never know what's going on. Is that what Team Khabib's doing, or do they really not want to do that match next? And that would surprise me. And the argument behind it for, hey, we need to do good business, we need somebody that can move the pay-per-view needle, I think is a little bit false. I don't know that is a true narrative. Khabib, outside of one time, which was the last time with Conor, has not been in there with somebody that is tremendously going to move that pay-per-view needle. So I don't know that that's ever been a requirement of their team before, which is why I would just say to you, before you get too worked up, if that's the fight, I think that's the fight, and I think there is stuff that you could do there. I do think for the likely suspects, and again, if you're taking Conor out of it, if you're just looking for where can we do the biggest business, you throw Conor in. If we're talking about who's next outside of Conor, I'm not sure you have any choices better than Tony Ferguson. So before any of you get worked up on that, before any of you get mad at Ali about that, making the statement, realize you're the ones with that power. You're the ones with the power to go out and say that's a really big fight. That's the one the buzz is around. That's the one we promise you we will mark on our calendar and make sure we're in front of our TVs pushing the buy button for. You're the ones with the power. If Ali says it's not going to do good numbers, he's talking about you. So you have the power on that. You have the power to say, no. You've got that wrong. We will come to the party if they fight. Now, the other side of that, and the reason I told you I don't like it, right? I don't like it, but that's just for me as a fan. I would have to admit that it is helpful, and many guys have followed that recipe. But if you look at Daniel Cormier, and it's always tough when a guy says, no, I only want to fight, and it's only the big numbers. And, Floyd did that for years, and it was always tough. But over the years of staying on top, Floyd did eventually chalk off all of the best guys. Can't take that from Floyd. He fought a lot of journeymen. He fought a lot of guys that never should have been in there. But along the way, he did check off that list. From the Pacquiaos to the Mosleys to the Canelos, he took them all on. To the De La Hoyas, he took them all on. But when you look at the other side of the coin, which is Daniel Cormier, who has now said if Brock does not come to fruition, it will be Stipe next. There is something very refreshing about that attitude, because the champion is now anointing and putting himself opposite the baddest sumbitch he can find. He's not talking about pay-per-views, and he's not talking about an easy light night out. He is offering himself and going to the public to say, I will anoint this guy. Oh, and by the way, unlike the way Floyd Mayweather did it, I'm anointing the baddest sumbitch out there. I'm putting it all on the line. There's just something very cool about that. I never feel that Daniel gets his due. And much like Floyd, at least in this comparison, he has been around and been on top for so long that eventually it comes. But it seemed to come the slow way and the hard way because he doesn't get credit for things like this. Nobody calls out Stipe Miocic. Nobody. Daniel's already been in there with him. Daniel knows the landscape. Daniel knows that's the hardest guy. And he also knows it's not necessarily coming with the biggest paycheck. That's not what it's about. He's a competitor and he's fair. The champion takes on anybody. Prior to being the champion, you want to see your name pop up in the rankings. You're furious if it's not. You begin calling out guys in the rankings so that if you defeat them, your name gets put in that top 10 list with a number next to it. Once you make the list, you try to move up higher on the list, and then you move into what's called the top 5. And once you make the top 5, you try to become the number 1 contender. Then once you become the champion, you get up in the loft and you pull the ladder up behind you so nobody else can get up there. All the other guys doing all the same things that you were doing, working just as hard with the same dreams and battling it out and scraping by because you have a dream. You then pull the ladder up in the loft behind you and say, yeah, well, I got here and their dreams don't matter. Even though we have the exact same trajectory and the exact same career paths, their dreams aren't as meaningful as mine. So now what I need to do is make sure that I stay on top, which means avoiding the best guys. That's the game. That's the one we play. But when a guy does that and he does it publicly, it is off-putting, to at least me. And when a guy doesn't do that, like Daniel, and he did this with Ozdemir too, he knew that wasn't going to be blockbuster business. He knew they weren't going to have huge paychecks. He just knew that Ozdemir had earned the opportunity, and he was going to give it to him. And many people will say, well, yeah, but a guy that earned the opportunity happens to match up stylistically perfectly with your style. Okay, that's fair. That's true. Stipe doesn't qualify for that. Stipe is a terrible matchup for anybody. Same as Cormier is a bad matchup for everyone, so Stipe. It is the hardest possible fight that he could go after, and he was very honest about the Brock fight. That's a huge fight, and that's one that I know I can win. But the allure around it and the perception becoming reality of the monster that is Brock Lesnar is a feather I'd like to have in my cap. He was very honest about it. He didn't get credit for that. Now he is saying he will be giving that opportunity to Stipe, and I think he has the power to do it. He had the power to give the opportunity to Ozdemir. Don't correct me that I say Ozdemir wrong. I don't do that to be condescending. Ozdemir. It's a hard name to say. Honor amongst thieves. Chael always gets said wrong, and I say other guys' name wrong. Honor amongst thieves. No condescension meant. But it is something that is really great, right? It is something where, yeah, you can go out and play the media and you can play the system and you can get all the attention, some for good reasons and some for bad. But when a guy does do everything right, for some reason he doesn't get rewarded.